People say humiliation builds character, but the kind of humiliation my father put me through, that builds something else entirely: revenge. My name is Harper Lane, and if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Scarlight Stories, because what I'm about to tell you is a masterclass in karma, delivered on a silver platter. Let's start with this. On the day of my father's wedding, in front of 200 guests, he introduced me, not as his daughter, but as the housekeeper. And he had no idea that the housekeeper secretly owned 40% of his multi-million-dollar corporation. Growing up, my father was always busy building a company, busy impressing clients, busy raising his reputation higher than his children, but never busy being a parent. When my mom died when I was 10, I thought maybe he'd finally step into the role of dad. Instead, he vanished into boardrooms and business trips, leaving me with nannies until I aged out of childcare and out of his concern. When he remarried 6 years later, he didn't even invite me to the wedding. It wasn't an oversight, it was a message. You're not part of my new family. But when his second marriage ended and he entered a relationship with Chloe, the woman he was now marrying, he suddenly wanted a daughter again. Not out of love, out of convenience. Chloe had 2 children from a previous marriage, both polished, poised, and ready-made for his image of a perfect family. Me? I was a liability, a reminder of the life he abandoned. Still, he forced a relationship. I didn't know why at the time, but later I learned the truth. It was because his board of directors was tired of his bachelor CEO persona. They told him shareholders prefer family-oriented leadership. So naturally, he manufactured a family. That was his specialty, manufacturing illusions. Fast forward to the day of the wedding. I wasn't supposed to be there. He never invited me. Not until Chloe insisted, saying it would look bad if the CEO's own daughter didn't show up. So I got a pity invitation, sent 3 days before the event, with no name on the card, just +1 optional. No seat assignment, no role, no mention in the program. But I still went, because I had a surprise he wasn't ready for. A legal surprise, a financial surprise, a surprise worth millions. But we'll get to that. When I arrived at the wedding venue, a massive glass ballroom attached to a luxury lakeside resort, I went straight to check in with the event hostess. She looked down at her tablet and frowned. Name? Harper Lane. Clicks. Scroll. More clicks. Then she gave me a sympathetic smile that made my stomach twist. Oh, here you are. Staff entrance is that way. My jaw clenched. Staff? She nodded. You're listed as housekeeping support. My heart slammed against my ribs. He listed me as housekeeping? She blinked. That's what it says. You're scheduled to help prepare the bridal suite and handle coat check. For a moment, I genuinely thought I might flip the table. But I forced myself to breathe. This wasn't the moment to explode. Not yet. Not when the perfect opportunity for public destruction was coming. The hostess pointed toward a side door, but I walked straight toward the main hall instead. Inside, guests mingled near crystal chandeliers and cascading white roses. Chloe's relatives laughed softly, sipping champagne. Then I saw him, my father, in a white suit, gold cufflinks, smiling like he had built this entire event with his own 2 hands. He didn't notice me until I was 3 feet away. His eyes widened, annoyed, not surprised. Harper, what are you doing here? I raised a brow. You invited me. He hesitated. Well, yes, of course. His eyes scanned my dress. Is that appropriate for staff? I'm not staff, I hissed. I'm your daughter. He gave a tight laugh. Yes, well, today is complicated. Chloe's ex-family is here.
I need things to go smoothly. Could you just stay in the background? I stared at him. Stay in the background? Yes, he said calmly. We don't need unnecessary questions. You understand, right? Before I could answer, a guest approached and asked, "Who is this young woman?" My father smiled without missing a beat. "Oh, her? She's helping with housekeeping today." My heart dropped into my stomach. That was the moment. The exact moment the old version of me died, and the version of me who owned 40% of his company came fully alive.
I excused myself, every muscle in my body shaking, not from hurt, but from pure, calculated rage. I walked to the back terrace and made a single phone call. "Are the documents ready?" I asked. My lawyer replied, "They're printed, notarized, and sitting in my briefcase. Everyone's waiting for your cue." Perfect. Because everything in my life changed the day I turned 22. On that day, out of the blue, my father's former partner, my godfather, passed away. And in his will, he left 40% of the company shares to me. He never trusted my father with full control, and now he was right. For months, I'd been quietly preparing to take my rightful seat. Not to steal the company from my father, but to make sure he never treated anyone else the way he treated me. And the wedding was the perfect stage. I walked back into the ballroom just as the music softened and the officiant announced, "Please take your seats. The ceremony is about to begin." My father took his place at the altar. Chloe walked down the aisle, looking like she'd been carved from moonlight. Guests sighed, photographers snapped photos. And me? I walked straight toward the front. Gasps echoed as my heels clicked across marble. My father's eyes widened in horror. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "Sit down." But I didn't sit. I turned toward the crowd, lifted my chin, and smiled. "Before this wedding begins," I said, voice steady, "I have a very important announcement." People froze. My father's face drained. He whispered, "Harper, you don't dare." But I dared, because what I had to say would turn his perfect wedding into the most unforgettable day of his life. Shock rolled through the ballroom like a wave. Guests turned in their chairs, phones subtly lifted, forks hovered midair. I could practically feel my father's panic from across the aisle. His wedding was a glittering fantasy, and I had just lit a match at the doorway. Before he could reach me, I raised my hand. "Don't worry," I said sweetly. "I won't take long. Just a few clarifications." My father hissed under his breath, "Harper, you're ruining everything!" I smiled sharper. "No, Dad, I'm correcting everything." Behind him, Chloe stared at me with a confused half-smile, the kind brides give to unexpected guests who look suspiciously like trouble. And oh, I was trouble. "First," I announced, turning to the crowd, "I'd like to address a small misunderstanding from earlier." I cleared my throat dramatically. "When I arrived today, the wedding staff told me I'd been listed as," I paused, letting the suspense build, "as the housekeeper." Gasps, whispers, a few horrified giggles. My father's face caught fire. "That was a clerical error," he blurted. "She wasn't supposed—" I cut him off with a raised eyebrow. "Really? Because when a guest asked who I was, you didn't hesitate to say exactly that." Chloe's hand flew to her mouth. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Dad took a step toward me. "Harper, office, now!" "No," I said softly, "not anymore. You don't get to shove me into corners." A ripple of applause came from the back. Actual applause! I blinked, stunned, until I spotted employees from my father's company. Right, they knew the truth. Everyone else was about to. I faced the guests again.
But don't worry, I'm not offended. I smiled, just amused. My father stiffened. He knew that smile. My mother used to call it my endgame expression. I'm amused because my father made one tiny mistake when he labeled me the help. I held up a folder. He forgot that the so-called housekeeper, I flicked the latch open, actually owns 40% of his company. The room erupted, 100 voices shouting at once, people standing, photos snapping like paparazzi lightning. Chloe's hand gasped so loudly it echoed. 40%? Dad grabbed the back of a chair, face paper white. That's impossible! You can't, where would you—
Get it? I finished. Oh, from someone who actually believed in me. I held up the signed share transfer document. My godfather left them to me in his will. Your old business partner, remember him? Dad swayed like the room was spinning. Those shares, he told you a lot of things, I said, but he didn't trust you with everything. A sharp murmur passed through the crowd. My father suddenly lunged forward and grabbed my wrist. You should have told me, he hissed. I yanked my hand back. You should have acknowledged me. I shot back. You should have invited me to the wedding like family. You should have introduced me as your daughter, not your maid. Silence spread like frost across the hall. But I wasn't finished, not even close. I turned toward the guests again. For those who don't know, I said, my father has been running Lane Corp for years as if he's the sole owner. More murmurs. But now that I'm here, I shrugged casually, I'll be taking my rightful position on the board. Dad grabbed my arm again. You can't just walk into my wedding and— Oh, I can. And I did. His voice cracked with desperation. You're humiliating me. I stepped closer. You humiliated me first. His eyes widened. This is revenge? No, I said softly. This is justice. Before he could respond, the lead investor from Lane Corp, Mr. Reynolds, stood up from table 5. He wasn't supposed to be here, but there he was. Is this true? You own 40%? I nodded. Legally verified. He turned to my father. Why didn't you tell your shareholders about this? My father sputtered. I didn't think she'd ever use them. Mr. Reynolds frowned deeply. Neglecting ownership disclosure is a violation of board policy. More murmurs. Someone audibly said, "Oh my God." Dad grabbed my shoulder. Harper, stop this. Please. You're ruining everything. I turned to him, leveling my voice. You ruined everything when you decided I wasn't worth acknowledging. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Finally, he whispered, I just wanted today to be perfect. For who? I asked. For you? For Chloe? For the image you're trying to sell? I stepped back. You never wanted a daughter at this wedding, just like you never wanted one in your life. He froze. The words hit him harder than any public revelation. But don't worry, I added lightly. I'm done begging for your recognition. Then I held up the folder, because starting Monday morning, your company, you won't be running it alone. The room gasped again. Dad stumbled back, like I'd punched him in the chest. You're joining the board? He croaked. I nodded. And I'm auditing everything. His face turned ashen. Everything? He whispered. Everything. At that moment, Chloe stepped forward. Her voice shook. Harper, this isn't the place. I smiled politely. You're right. Then I turned to the officiant. Please continue with the ceremony. Everyone stared. Yes,
I wanted the wedding to go on. I wanted my father to stand there, shaken, exposed, vulnerable, and still try to pretend his world hadn't just flipped upside down. I wanted him to feel the weight of the truth while trying to smile for the camera. I wanted him to finally understand what it was like to be invisible, and then suddenly impossible to ignore. But the real twist, the deeper truth I hadn't revealed yet, that was coming next.
Because 40% wasn't the only thing my godfather left me. No, he left me something bigger, something that would take my father's entire company and flip it on its head. And that secret was going to detonate at the reception. People think explosions are loud, but the biggest explosions in life, the ones that tear entire identities apart, they happen in silence. And the silence in that ballroom, right after I announced I owned 40% of my father's company, was the kind that sets the stage for an earthquake. But I wasn't done, not even close. Before I continue, make sure you subscribe to Scarlight Stories, because trust me, you'll want more endings like this one. After my announcement, the wedding ceremony limped forward like a wounded animal. Chloe still walked down the aisle. Guests still held their breath. The officiant still smiled painfully. But every single person in that room kept darting glances toward me. My father's face, a perfect shade of my entire life just collapsed. His hands shook as he held Chloe's, his vows coming out robotic and uneven. He actually forgot Chloe's name halfway through. I tried not to smirk, but hey, poetic timing. The moment they kissed, a few awkward claps erupted, mostly from people trying to distract themselves from the bomb that had exploded minutes earlier. Then came the reception, the moment I had been waiting for, because if the ceremony was the shock, the reception was the detonation. Chloe cornered me the minute guests began taking their seats. She looked stunning, angry, and confused all at once. She whispered harshly, "Why would you do that? Couldn't you have waited until tomorrow?" I took a sip of champagne. "Your fiancé listed me as housekeeper at his wedding." She winced. "I didn't know about that." "Didn't you?" I asked, tilting my head. She hesitated just long enough to answer the question for me. My father approached next. His smile was stiff, his jaw clenched, but his eyes held the panic of a man whose castle had just been swallowed by the sea. He said quietly, "Harper, let's discuss this privately." "No thanks," I said brightly. "Everything I need to say will be said right here."
His face strained. "No," he whispered. "Please, not in front of everyone." I leaned in. "Funny. That's exactly how you felt when you introduced me as the housekeeper, in front of everyone." He had no comeback. After dinner, the microphone was opened for speeches. Chloe's father spoke first. Sweet, sharp suit, generic praise. Then my father stood. His voice wavered. "We, want to thank you all for being here." But he wasn't looking at the crowd. He was staring at me. "And, I want to acknowledge mistakes that were made today." Whispers flared in the audience. He swallowed. "But family is about forgiveness." I raised my hand. "Is it my turn yet?" Gasps. Chloe's face paled. The DJ scrambled to lower the music. My father whispered, "Harper, don't." "Oh, I will," I said, "because the biggest truth hasn't come out yet." The ballroom froze. I stepped forward and took the microphone. "Earlier today, I announced that I own 40% of Lane Corp. But what I didn't tell you," I paused, listening to the stunned silence, "is that my godfather left me more than shares." My father's lips parted. He knew something worse was coming. He left me a binder, dozens of documents, files, proof. I lifted a thick blue folder from the table. "Proof," I continued, "that for the last 8 years, my father has been misusing company funds." The crowd erupted. "What? Is this real? She's lying." Dad stepped forward, shaking. "Harper, stop. You don't understand." "Oh, I do," I said, "because the man you pushed aside, the partner you betrayed, spent the last 3 years collecting documentation." I opened the folder.
And before he died, he put me in charge of delivering it to the board when the time was right. I locked eyes with my father. And Dad, today, felt perfect. I handed the folder to Mr. Reynolds, the lead shareholder, who had rushed forward the moment I began speaking. He flipped through the pages, brows furrowed, jaw tightening with every sheet. "These are signed financial statements and personal transactions labeled as company expenditures. This is damning." My father practically collapsed. "I can explain." Mr. Reynolds raised a hand. "You'll explain to the board, not here." Dad turned back to me, furious and desperate. "You're trying to ruin me." I shook my head. "No, you ruined yourself. I'm just revealing the truth you tried to bury, just like you tried to bury me." People began whispering. Is the CEO really under investigation? Did his daughter expose him? She owns 40%. She outranks him. My father grabbed my arm. "You ungrateful little—" Chloe stepped between us, horrified. "Richard, stop!" He froze. Then, as if every lie he'd built his life on collapsed at once, he sank into a chair, hands shaking, in his hair. But I wasn't finished. I stepped back up to the mic. "And one last thing," I said, voice steady. "Starting Monday, I will be taking my seat on the Lane Corp board, and once the internal audit is complete," I looked directly at my father, "we will vote on whether you remain CEO." The room went dead silent. Dead silent. My father whispered, broken, "You're going to take my company from me?" I nodded. "It was never yours alone. And you proved today you don't deserve to lead it. But most importantly," I placed the microphone down. "You called your own daughter a housekeeper." He choked out. "I didn't mean—" "You never do," I whispered. "Not until you're losing something." When I turned to walk away, applause broke out. Slow at first, then louder, then thunderous. People weren't clapping because they hated my father. They were clapping because they saw a woman reclaim her voice, her worth, her power. My father sat motionless, the king who lost his crown at his own wedding. And me, the daughter he dismissed, I walked out of that ballroom taller than I had ever walked in. On Monday, I joined the board. By Friday, the audit was completed, and by the following month, my father was voted out. He resigned quietly, no press conference, no fight. And Lane Corp? It flourished with a new CEO. Me. The woman he tried to shrink to the size of a housekeeper now ran his empire. The end. If you loved this reveal and want more jaw-dropping revenge stories, don't forget to subscribe to Scarlight Stories, where justice
always arrives with a twist.